Hello Internet, welcome back to the channel. My name is Frankie and today we are continuing to play Jurassic World Evolution 2. In the last video I created this entrance area which was a lot of fun, and after posting the video and sharing it about a little bit, somebody suggested that I get rid of the monorail, which I personally did say I didn't actually like, and replace it with a zip line. And I really like this idea. It really gets rid of that ugly looking building and the very obnoxious looking the actual monorail. That itself just looks horrible snaking its way around the path, I think. This, however, I love the idea. I think it's hilarious that in order to get into the park, everyone has to go on the zip wire. At the end of the day, if you're not willing to get on a zip wire, if you're scared of that, you probably shouldn't be facing down a huge, massive dinosaur, should you? Something that could eat you in a split second, but you're not willing to go on a zip wire? Yeah. Just there, don't bother. Here you're looking at the high street kind of area that I didn't really decorate in the last video, but I did build. I decorated it in between, just added some fountains and plant boxes and a little picnic area which I think is kind of cute. And over here is going to be where today's exhibit is going to be. And today I'm going to be making an enclosure for my favourite dinosaurs of all time. And as you're watching this video, you've probably already seen the thumbnail and therefore know what one of the dinosaurs is going to be. But I'm not going to tell you what the other is. Here I'm just starting to sketch out the pathing for where the enclosure is going to be. This is how I want the guests to actually get to the area. I'm going to create a nice little arch here. I'm really enjoying this kind of semicircular shape that you then fill with decorations and stuff, just to add a bit more personality to the grounds, I guess. Now when it comes to picking some fencing, I was looking for something that was quite open. I didn't want an electric one though, I just don't really like the idea of those. And I stumbled across this massive fence from Jurassic Park rather than Jurassic World. And it looks really cool. I don't think I've used it before. So I'm going to go for this big, chunky fence. You can see I'm bouncing about loads. I didn't know that this thing was a thing. It looks really cool, the drive-through entrance to an enclosure. I really like that. I'm going to use that at some point. But I settle on the really thick, chunky fencing for this enclosure, as I'm going to be having quite a large space and therefore quite large animals as well. Once I've selected what fence I'm going to be using, I really simply sketch out a shape that I want it to be. I make sure to try and match the curvature of this first bit to the path that I made earlier. I like it when the paths mirror the fencing shape. I think it just looks a lot neater if you do it that way. And I'm going to be using that semicircle kind of area for our viewing galleries and our main ways for the visitors to actually interact with the dinosaurs within this enclosure. It is quite large, so we're going to need some long range viewing galleries, but that's fine. As I start to come around, I'm not bothering to get rid of all the trees just yet. I'll do that in a second. I know the general shape that I want, and that's the most important thing at the moment, just getting the shape down for the enclosure. When it comes to adding the viewing galleries, I'm going to try and stick to the Jurassic World aesthetic that I've been using through the high street and the entrance areas. So going for the Jurassic World viewing galleries, whether that be the wide ground level one or this lighthouse kind of shaped one. Don't know why I think of it as a lighthouse. The idea with the tall one is it's going to be pointing at the main drinking area. I think this will probably be the hotspot for the enclosure, where all the dinosaurs gather and stuff, because all of them, regardless of what their food source is, are going to need water. So it'll be the most frequented area in the enclosure. Now I'm going to get rid of all of the trees just so that I have a clear view of what this enclosure is, so that I can start to sculpt in some water areas, and then I'll add the trees again afterwards, along with any of the plants that I know are going to be needed as a food source for the dinosaurs that I've chosen ahead of time. They're already in the hatchery, they're cooking away, they're ready to go. Whilst I'm doing this, I would just like to ask anybody that's watching, if you have any suggestions for the name of this park, maybe drop them in the comments below, because I have no idea what to call this place, but I'd like to actually give it a name. It'd be cool, given it's my first YouTube kind of park. It'd be good for, I guess, the YouTube audience to actually help me come up with some of the decisions. And with that in mind, I would also like to put it out there that if there are any dinosaurs you would really like to see in the park, please let me know. I've got almost all the DLCs. As I said in the previous video, I haven't played for quite a while. it appears as though the last 3 DLCs are the ones I haven't got. So the last one that I do is the Late Cretaceous pack. Haven't got the Cretaceous Carnivores yet, or the Marine Reptile one, or the most recent Hybrid pack. Other than that, go wild. Drop some suggestions in the comments below. That'd be really cool. As you can see here, I am creating the water source, or the pond, whatever we're going to call it. And my basic idea for that was to create a donut kind of shape and then cut into it, making it look a lot more organic and random. And I think it looks really nice. It creates more of an oasis kind of feel if you do it this way. It looks just a lot more natural. And I always make sure to go in with the removing of foliage tool to get rid of any trees or shrubs that are growing directly in the water. Whilst you would have thicker growth of shrubs and, well, basically all of the natural plants, you would have a thicker growth of those by the water's edge. They're not necessarily going to be growing directly in the water. You don't often see that. In this other corner, I'm going to be raising the ground a bit. I wanted to play about with elevation. It just helps to keep the whole thing looking a lot more interesting. I think the key to making something like this look good and realistic is to jump about with it. So to begin with, I am sketching out the basic area that I want to be risen. I know I want this back portion to be higher than the rest. I then start to play about with the elevations a bit more intentionally rather than just marking out where I want it to be. And you can see it is a very steep slope. And that's fine because I'm gonna smooth it out. I want it to look natural. If it's that sharp, I don't know, it looks very uniform, and I don't like that at all. The idea is to create a couple layers here as well. At the moment, I'm just smoothing out the back, which isn't really important because no guests are going to be able to see it. But you can see me now start to raise more towards the bottom, because if I smoothed that area, it would look too flat, I think. So introducing different heights and then smoothing it, it's going to look a bit more dynamic. It's going to look like it's in layers, which just looks a lot more natural. And with that idea in mind, that idea of trying to make things look natural, I start to paint the floor as well. And the main idea behind this is wherever there is a large slope on this hill, I'm going to paint some rock. To begin with, I'm using the brightest, lightest rock, and I'm just filling in the areas that I know I want to have altered. This isn't the final look, I'm just marking out the areas. And then I start to spice it up a little bit with the dark rock. Variation is key. When you're trying to create a natural looking setting, variation really helps. So having this difference in light and dark rock makes it look less uniform and therefore more believable. And it's not the only texture I'm going to use either. Once I'm happy in variation of the rock colour, I'm going to start using dirt. And this is primarily going to focus on the edges of the rocky area to help to blend it into the grass. Because after all, a lush green grass like this won't grow directly out of a stone. It just isn't gonna happen. So it needs to have been eroded and degraded away into a soil, something that it can grow in. This will just help to create that kind of transition between the two, and it looks a bit more believable doing it that way. And I hadn't noticed that there were 2 shades of grass for this particular biome, and that's very useful because one grass is a lot more vibrant, the other looks a bit more patchy, which I'm going to be using around the edges as well. It's going to be a bit more patchy than the soil, but it's really going to help that transition from rock and dirt to this lush green grass that covers the rest of the enclosure. At this point, I'm happy with the general structure of the enclosure in terms of the foundations on which it's going to be kind of decorated. So what else do the creatures need for their enclosures? Well, all herbivores like a little bit of forest in varying degrees, of course, but let's go ahead and add some, mainly to the perimeter. It's not going to go all the way around. We're going to try and leave those hills that we just built a bit more bare and barren, as if plants did exist up there once, but they have unfortunately been exposed to harsh winds and maybe potential mudslides and stuff. We're going to add a lot more of the foliage around the waterhole rather than anywhere else, and like I said before, we're going to try our best to trim back the bits that end up in the water, just because it doesn't make too much sense. It's also at this stage that we can start to add the vegetation needed for our animals, and one of those is going to be nut. Whether that be ground or tall nut, they're both on the same kind of brush, I guess. That'll give you a little hint as to who I might be putting in here, or what, I guess, not who. There's also going to be plenty of ground leaf and ground fibre. Once all the plant life is down, I can move on to decorations, and I'm mainly going to be focusing on a range of stones, and they are mainly going to be placed around the hill area where we have got some exposed rock face. I just think that makes sense, and we're also going to have some in amongst the watering hole, because I don't know why, I just think having large rocks and stuff in amongst the water just makes it look a lot more dynamic. I'm not entirely sure why, I just really like this look. And of course, once we're happy with the placement of the stones, we're going to be using my new favourite decoration, the fallen tree, the tree trunk. I'm going to place that all over the hill to further suggest this idea that there used to be quite a nice landscape up here that has been eroded and stuff from the weather and exposure that it has at a risen point. So these dead tree trunks kind of help to hint at that. The last few attraction I'm going to be adding to this enclosure is the gyrospheres. There's something about these that I just really want to have a go. I just really want to roll around in one of those. You know, they kind of remind me of the big blow-up balls that you can climb inside of and either run on water. I've done that before, that was pretty cool. But I'm actually thinking more of the ones that you can put your arms and legs out of, so you can run into people and launch them across a large area. It's a bit of a tangent, but I want to have a go on one of those. So yes, I am adding this to the enclosure as well to allow the guests to get nice and up and close with the dinosaurs, which should hint at the fact they're probably not going to be too dangerous. I mean, all dinosaurs are dangerous at the end of the day. They could all kill you, but it's not going to be a T-Rex or something. And with that in mind, it's time to add our first dinosaur, and we're going to be starting small and cute. We're not going for something too scary to begin with. Let's welcome the Stiggy Moloch. Now, I did say that I was going to be adding my favourite dinosaurs to the park in this episode, and whilst this guy is adorable, he's not actually one of my favourites. He doesn't quite make the cut. The reason I am adding this dinosaur is I want a bit of range in terms of size. What you've seen in the thumbnail, the Styracosaurus, is quite large, and the other creatures that are going to be in this enclosure are quite large as well. We're going to have two medium tier in terms of size species, one extra large, and I thought it'd be good to have a small one as well to mix it up. So that's why we've got these Stiggy Moloch, which we're going to quickly put to sleep and then fly over to their new enclosure. Something I like to do when airdropping a species into a new enclosure is spread out where they're going to be landing. I do this because I'm a little bit impatient and I want them to establish their, territory. I want them to establish their territory as quickly as possible. By spreading them out, their range kind of groups together, and by having them in a line like that, they've automatically covered about half the enclosure already and established what's there and if it meets their requirements and stuff. So that's why I do it like this. Whilst I'm waiting for these little headaches to arrive, I decide to make sure that the bottom of the water area is all mud. I like to have a mud or soil foundation underwater just because grass wouldn't actually be growing there. Once I've got that in place, I think it might actually look kind of nice to add some sand to the edges. I'm going to do loads, we're going to keep it quite sparse, just rapidly tapping the apply button rather than holding it down, so that it's a bit more of a random coverage and it looks a bit more organic. I just think this variation in textures near the edge of the water would just help to bring attention to the differences. And just as I finish up with that, all of the Stiggy Molochs have arrived and they are looking adorable, and after a brief check they seem to have everything they need in this enclosure, which is good. Oh, they're so cute, aren't they? I mean, look at him. They just look so friendly, despite all the massive spikes on the back of their head and the fact that they could probably break your leg by headbutting it. This one in particular, I think, is gorgeous. I love this colour. Don't know why. It's orangey, and orange is one of my favourite colours. Yeah, I'm quite happy with how this pack came out. Now, let's see what the next dinosaur is. That's right, the first of my personal favourite dinosaurs is the Styracosaurus. This ceratopsid has always been a favourite of mine since I was very young, and it's something I always feel like I need to have in my parks. The ornamental horns are just something really special. I can't quite put my finger on it. They're just really cool. I can kind of imagine them skewering vegetables on their horns and having a little kebab. Don't know what that says about me or the dinosaur. Anyway, that's not the point. I really like the colours that these guys have come out in. There's one dark, one kind of a mid-tone, and then a really bright one. I think they're going to look really nice as a pack. Let's get them flown over to their enclosure, make sure they like it, and then we can pop out the next dinosaur. Whilst we're waiting for them to arrive, let's have a little look at the Stiggy Molochs having a drink. It's always a treat to stumble upon them when they're actually using one of their animations, whether that be eating or drinking, lying down, or, I don't know, kind of headbutting each other. I really like the social animations that have been used for all the dinosaurs in this game. It really adds a lot of depth. It's really cool. Well, we just missed that one, which is quite annoying, but they're having a bit of a tussle. And you know what? I'm not even going to wait whilst the Styracosaurus are in the air. Let's go and release the next dinosaur. That's right, taking my top spot for favourite dinosaur is the Parasaurolophus. It has always had my top spot in terms of favourite dinosaurs since I was a little boy. They are just so beautiful. They look so elegant and friendly. I know that it's not a good idea to go and give them a hug, but you want to, don't you? You want to go and give it a hug. I've chosen to go for a fairly plain on the surface colour scheme. Whilst I've been building this park, I've been paying attention to light and such, because when it gets to night time, I want the park to still be quite visible. So these Parasaurolophus have been created with the Lux skin, which is the glow-in-the-dark one that Professor Wu created for whatever reason. But they are going to look stunning at night time, which will add just a little bit of something special to the park. There is one more species left to add to this park, and it's one that I just do not use that often. It's not a favourite, it's just one that I think needs to be used more, and it looks really awesome. So let's introduce him. These behemoths of dinosaurs, the Alamosaurus, are just gorgeous. They are beautifully decorated. Unlike a lot of the sauropods in this game, they haven't been dolphinized. I mean, when I say dolphinized, I mean they're not smooth. They've got bumps and spikes and stuff. They just look really good. So I thought I'd add those, especially as I really haven't used them that much. And it adds that variation in size that I was talking about earlier. Something you may or may not have noticed is that all of these herbivores are actually from the late Cretaceous period. They are not necessarily from the same place on Earth, they're kind of from all over. But I thought it'd be quite a nice idea to keep all of the creatures in this exhibit to the same period of time. Whilst we fly these guys over to their main enclosure, I'm going to start decorating just outside, because at the moment it's just very barren. First things first, I'm going to utilise some of this space by placing some hotels. I'm going to go with both a large and a small one rather than two of the same. I did play about with the idea of using two large ones, but I don't like that you can't reverse the shape. I think it'd be cool if you could mirror it so that the doorways or the entrances were next to each other. So it just looks strange having those L shapes kind of copy and pasted. It's not too much of an issue when they're completely different sizes though, so that's why I opt to do a big and small one. When it comes to decorating this little semicircle in front of the viewing galleries, I'm going to decorate it in a similar fashion to how I did the entrance point to the park. I'm going to have a fountain in the middle, I'm going to use some skeletons and rocks and have the ground be nice and sandy to make it look like that is something that we've done as park constructors. I was considering placing the Spinosaurus skeleton there because, well, I haven't used it yet, but I decided I'd go for the two sauropods instead. As this is a herbivore only enclosure, it kind of represents what's in the enclosure instead. One item that I am finding to become quite a staple in my decorating techniques or tactics, whatever you want to call it, is the benches. I think they are really useful. I like to place them at the edges of areas like this, and I always make sure to place some bins as well. It just makes it a lot more immersive having benches and bins, because of course you would in a park like this in real life. I'm also trying to use a few more decorations than normal. I feel like I've been using the same kind of ones over and over again. So I'm going to try and use the umbrella-y parasol things that are on some, what looks like sticks of incense. I know that's not what it is, but it kind of looks like that. I'm going to use those over the top of the benches to kind of create a bit of shade for when you're sat there. I also make sure to dot around a few torches or lamps, whatever you want to call them, and flower beds because, as I said earlier, I like to make sure that this park will be visible at night, so those torches are really important. And I think the flower beds just make little paths, like to your viewing galleries, just look a lot more interesting, less boring, so that's why I do that. I personally think this finished look is quite nice. It's pretty simple, easy to do, but it's kind of effective and it's leaning into that naturalistic kind of thing that I wanted as well. So I thought, let's have a little look at our dinosaurs. They've been in here a while now, they're establishing their territory and whatnot, make sure they've got everything they need. So let's just sit back and enjoy a bit of dinosaur watching before we continue. Oh, big stretch. Despite a bit of rough and tumble, all of our dinosaurs do actually seem quite happy in their new enclosure. To fill in some space behind the hotels and in between buildings and stuff, I'm going to just apply some of the forest that we used inside the enclosure because I quite like these autumnal colours and whatnot. I'm also going to use the flowery shrubs along the edges of the path just to add colour. I like the idea that this park is alive, you know, it's a living, breathing thing. We want all this organic structure. And this little barren part behind the hotel, I'm going to manually place some of the decorative trees because they fit in really well. And with that, we are done for this video. I hope you enjoyed this exhibit. Please leave any suggestions that you have, whether it be for basic infrastructure like the zipline suggestion, or dinosaur species or names. anything that you want to contribute to this park, please leave it in a comment down below. I really appreciate all the support that I've gotten so far. It's really cool. And I will continue with this build this week. I think we should go with a Cretaceous carnivore next. Probably just above the viewing centre. Not viewing centre, sorry, the visitor centre. This is slightly off to the right, so we're going to do it just above this enclosure. I like the idea of having the park revolve around this high street that we've created. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.